Dear Radiant Leo, let me ask you this. What if one single day in August 2025 held the power to shift your entire destiny, not as a metaphor, but in a very real, irreversible way? This is not an ordinary reading. And this is not an ordinary month. You've been guided here because something sacred is unfolding beneath the surface of your life, and whether you realize it yet or not, you are at the edge of an energetic threshold. One that is asking not for your perfection, but for your presence. This video was created for one reason: to help you understand and prepare for a destined turning point that will echo across every part of your life emotionally, spiritually, financially, and karmically. A final hidden truth is rising to the surface, and when it does, it won't just shift what you believe, it will shift who you are becoming. Leo, you were born under the light of the sun. But somewhere along the journey, even the brightest stars dim their own light to meet the expectations of others. You've carried pride like armor. You've performed, achieved, endured, all to hold up an image the world could admire. And yet, if you're honest, there's been a silent voice inside you whispering that something deeper is waiting. Something real. Unfiltered. Untamed. That something is now closer than ever. In August 2025, a cosmic sequence involving your ruler, the Sun, and the disruptive, liberating force of Uranus will crack open the facade. A long-buried truth, an old dream, a part of your soul you tucked away for safety, it's coming back. And this time, you're not here to silence it. You're here to set it free. This is not prediction. It's preparation. And while others may still be busy chasing validation, you are being called to redefine what success and authenticity truly mean. To shed the layers that no longer serve. To rise, not just for applause, but because your soul remembers what it came here to do. Let me take a moment to thank you, not just for being here, but for showing up for yourself. Every like, every comment, every subscriber who chooses to walk with us on this journey becomes part of something larger, a soul-led community, built not on performance, but on purpose. Your presence helps this message reach others who, like you, are ready to reclaim their power. And I'm beyond grateful. So stay with me, Leo. Because this shift is no small ripple. It's a tidal wave of meaning, memory, and magic. And I promise you, what the universe is about to reveal in this reading is more profound than you expect. Before we begin, I want to ask you, have you ever felt like your soul is ready but the world hasn't caught up yet? If so, I invite you to leave a comment below that says, I am ready to step into the version of me that was always meant to rise. Because you are. And you're not alone. Let's begin. There are moments in life when the soul quietly stands at the edge of something it cannot name, suspended between what has been and what has not yet arrived. Leo, this is exactly where you find yourself now. It may feel like you're trapped between two stories, as if a page has turned, but the next sentence hasn't been written yet. You're not where you were, but you're also not fully where you're meant to be. And in this space between chapters, something sacred is quietly unfolding. The astrological energy of this time is not random. With the full moon in Aquarius aligning closely with your mid-heaventh point that symbolizes your public identity, purpose, and destiny, veil is being lifted. Aquarius, the sign of higher vision and individual truth, doesn't demand your obedience. It invites your liberation. And when the moon, keeper of your inner world, touches this axis of your chart, it doesn't scream for change, it whispers it. In the soft hours of the night, or in the stillness of a thought you can't ignore, you may feel it, a call to finally name the longing you've kept tucked away in the corners of your being. This is not a time to rush or fix or perform. It is a time to pause, to breathe, to listen. Transformation, the kind that changes your orbit, often begins not with thunder but with a tremble. A moment of quiet honesty. A flicker of recognition that says, this dream inside me, I've never let it speak aloud. So I invite you now to take a moment. Write it down. The thing you've always wanted to pursue. The path you once imagined but dismissed as impractical. The version of yourself you were too afraid to become. This act of naming is not dramatic. It is devotional. Because when you bring truth into the light, you begin to reclaim the pieces of yourself that have been hidden in shadow. In energy healing, we understand that unspoken emotions are not dormant, they are active currents that shape our choices, often unconsciously. When we carry longing without acknowledgement, it doesn't disappear, it disguises itself as distraction, dissatisfaction, or even burnout. But when we give these hidden feelings a place at the table, not to judge them, but to witness them, we begin the process of inner restoration. From a cosmic perspective, this moment mirrors the archetype of the moon and judgment cards in the tarot. The moon represents what lies beneath the surface, dreams, illusions, intuition, the quiet parts of us that long to be seen. Judgment, however, is the call to rise not through force, but through awakening. It doesn't punish the past, it integrates it. And together, these two cards offer a message tailor-made for you. Before you can step into the next version of your life, you must first recognize the voice of the self that's been waiting to be heard. This inner transition does not ask you to leap blindly. It asks you to notice. What thoughts keep returning when you're still? What emotions rise when you let your guard down? What images appear when you close your eyes, not as fantasy, but as a reflection of something real you've never given yourself permission to explore? There is a quiet teaching in this chapter, that between the letting go and the becoming, there is a sacred stillness. And in that stillness, your soul can finally speak. So listen, not just with your ears, but with your entire body. Trust the tremors. Honor the tears. Let what has been hidden rise, not to haunt you, but to free you. Because the gate isn't ahead of you, Leo. It's already open. The only question now is whether you will walk through it. Change rarely feels convenient when it first arrives. Especially for someone like you, Leo, someone who has built an identity with intention, with pride, and with care. But right now, the sky itself is rearranging its message for you. Uranus, the planet of disruption and liberation, is currently casting its voltage into the area of your life connected to career, direction, and purpose. It's not here to gently ask if you're comfortable. It's here to shake loose the things that no longer hold truth, so that what does can finally breathe. At first, this kind of shift might feel like a crack in the mirror of who you thought you were. But that mirror, let's be honest, has long reflected a version of you that was built to please, to protect, or to perform. The truth is, the longer we wear an image that no longer fits, the heavier it becomes. And Uranus doesn't wait for us to be ready. It responds to when the soul is ready, even if the ego hasn't caught up yet. So if you feel like something's off, if you find yourself suddenly questioning what used to feel certain, that's not regression. That's intelligence. Inner intelligence. Your intuition is not malfunctioning, it's maturing. Because deep within the structure of your old habits, your old thoughts, your old goals, is a voice that's been whispering, "This is not it. There's more for me." The law of attraction teaches that we cannot attract a frequency we aren't willing to embody. So if you've been stuck in cycles of trying harder, doing more, looking outward for validation and it's no longer working, it's because you've outgrown the frequency that built that life. You're not meant to hustle harder within the same mold. You're meant to reshape the mold entirely. Here's the question that changes everything. Are you living this life for truth or for approval? If you pause and answer honestly, you may feel an inner exhale you didn't know you were holding. Because clarity isn't found in comfort. It's often found in discomfort that finally breaks something open. And this is where the invitation arises, to update the way you express, the way you lead, the way you choose. This could be as simple as changing your daily routines, the way you speak about yourself, or the way you allow others to see your vulnerability. Or it might be bigger, ending a path that's no longer aligned, even if others don't understand. In tarot, this energetic storm mirrors the power of the tower and the sun. The tower doesn't destroy to punish. It collapses illusions that were never meant to last. It takes down the performance so that authenticity can rise. And the sun? That's your card, Leo. It reminds us that what's real will always survive the fall. What's born from truth doesn't need to be protected, it shines by its very nature. There's a teaching in many philosophies that speaks of impermanence, not to make us afraid, but to remind us that form is meant to shift. That which resists natural transformation often breaks harder later. So allow yourself to soften. Allow your identity to evolve without shame. You are not betraying who you were, you are honoring who you're becoming. This isn't the kind of shift you prepare for with control. It's the kind you meet with courage. So ask yourself, what version of me have I been maintaining, and is it still true? If the answer is no, then this moment, though it may feel uncertain, is not an ending. It's a release. And what comes after is brighter, bolder, and more aligned than anything you've built before. Let it come. Sometimes the past doesn't return to haunt you. Sometimes it comes back simply to ask, have you grown enough to choose differently now? And if you listen closely, you'll notice that what's resurfacing in your life, whether it's a familiar face, a forgotten dream, or an opportunity you once let pass, is not here to pull you backward. It's here to reflect who you've become in the time since you last met it. Leo, you're no stranger to passion. You've loved boldly, pursued fiercely, and dared to believe in big visions. But even the most courageous hearts have moments where the timing just wasn't right. Maybe you once said not because you weren't capable, but because you didn't believe you were ready. Maybe you closed a door, not out of clarity, but out of self-protection. And now, as this echo from your past quietly reappears, you're being offered a rare and beautiful moment, not to repeat the story, but to finish writing the part you left untold. This kind of moment is subtle. It may show up as a message from someone you haven't spoken to in years. A dream you once chased and then buried under logic. A job, a passion project, or even a creative expression that once thrilled you but was set aside for something safer. It may not announce itself dramatically, but if you're paying attention, you'll feel it in your chest, a recognition, like a long-lost part of you knocking on the door of your present self. What matters now is not the story that came before. It's the energy you bring to it this time. Because now, you're not meeting it with fear. You're meeting it with self-awareness. And the question you must ask yourself is not whether it's possible, but whether it's aligned. Are you reaching for this out of love or out of longing? Are you called to it now because it truly fits who you are becoming, or because you're afraid of being left behind? In energy work, we understand that cycles don't repeat because you failed, they repeat because something remains unintegrated. Forgiveness is often the key to that integration. But not the kind of forgiveness that demands you forget. This is the deeper kind, the kind that acknowledges what happened, accepts who you were then, and frees up the emotional energy still caught in the old version of you. When you forgive from this place, you are not giving your power away, you are taking it back. This is the moment for radical honesty. What have you left behind, not because it was wrong but because you didn't yet believe you were worthy of it? What version of yourself did you bury because you didn't think the world would understand? I invite you to pause and ask, with open curiosity, what am I ready to reclaim now that I once feared was too much? The Six of Cups and strength appear together in moments like these. The Six of Cups is nostalgia, memory, the beauty and pain of what once was. But strength, your card, Leo, is not about force. It's about grace. It's about taming the inner roar, not by silencing it, but by listening to it with compassion. Together, these cards remind us, your past doesn't need to be a prison. It can be a portal. So meet this returning energy not with hesitation, but with clarity. You don't need to prove anything. You only need to decide, does this deserve a place in the version of me I'm becoming? If the answer is yes, embrace it fully. And if the answer is no, release it with peace. Either way, the choice is no longer coming from fear. It's coming from freedom. Success built on struggle is never sustainable. And you, Leo, have known what it means to fight your way to recognition. To push forward when it wasn't easy. To keep showing up even when your heart wasn't fully aligned. But what's shifting now is not just your circumstances, it's your relationship with ambition itself. You're entering a new paradigm of success, one that isn't powered by pressure or performance, but by resonance. Alignment. Truth. For so long, you may have believed that effort was the only currency that mattered. That you had to climb, to prove, to produce because that's what strong people do. And yes, your strength has been a gift. But strength that's always in defense becomes rigidity. What's emerging now is a softer kind of power. A deeper kind of clarity. A success that doesn't require you to become someone else to achieve it, but instead invites you to return to who you already are. Astrologically, this is where the energy of the Ace of Pentacles begins to reveal itself. Not as a sudden windfall or a random opportunity, but as a seed. A possibility rooted in soil that's finally ready to nourish something long-lasting. If you're paying attention, you'll notice it's no longer about chasing what sparkles from the outside. It's about feeling what lights you up from the inside. The fire in your chest when you talk about a project that matters. The spark of inspiration that returns when you're no longer hiding behind expectations. And this is why you're being asked now not to rush. Not to choose based on salary or status, but on soul. Pause and ask yourself, if no one could see what I did for work, what would I still be proud to do every day? If there were no titles, no applause, no metrics, what contribution would still make my heart feel alive? This is where authenticity becomes your compass, not your reward. And from an energetic perspective, this shift is crucial. The law of attraction doesn't respond to effort, it responds to frequency. When you act from obligation, the energy is heavy, resistant, hard to sustain. But when you create from alignment, the energy moves with you. It amplifies. It expands. And success becomes a byproduct, not the goal. There's a phrase in ancient teachings that suggests right livelihood is not just what you do, but how you do it, whether your work is an extension of your values, whether it brings harmony rather than harm. So today, I invite you to reconnect with your own definition of meaningful work. Write down 3 things your ideal path must have, not what the world tells you to want, but what your inner self quietly craves. Then, tomorrow morning, before the noise of the day floods in, spend just 10 minutes in stillness. Close your eyes and affirm, I am worthy of a career that honors the truth of who I am. Say it until your body starts to believe it. The star appears now, not to promise fame or spotlight, but to restore your sense of direction. The kind of direction that isn't plotted on a spreadsheet but felt in your bones. The kind that reminds you, you don't need to burn yourself out to shine, you are already the flame. In numerology, the number 8 supports this journey. It represents power that flows, not dominates. Wealth that circulates, not controls. It's the rhythm of breath, the cycle of giving and receiving. And it reminds you, you don't have to sacrifice your well-being to build something worthwhile. You can choose both impact and integrity. So as your career begins to climb again, ask yourself, am I building from pressure or from purpose? Because the moment you shift from survival to authenticity, you stop chasing success and begin to embody it. When clarity finally arrives, it doesn't always come in the form of a grand revelation. More often, it emerges softly like the first trace of light before sunrise, quiet but undeniable. And this month, Leo, something within you is beginning to stir in exactly that way. You may not have words for it yet, but you can feel it. A faint signal. A pull. A shift in attention that keeps bringing you back to the same numbers, the same phrases, the same unexplainable sense that something is about to align. This is the part of transformation that doesn't always make sense at first. It's not logical, not planned. It can feel like walking into a room you've been in before, but suddenly noticing the details for the very first time. You might overhear someone say something that hits your chest in just the right way, or dream of a place you've never seen but somehow recognize. And you wonder, why now? Astrologically, this is where the archetypes of the high priestess and the hermit begin to rise within you, not as external signs to follow, but as internal archetypes waiting to be acknowledged. The high priestess doesn't speak loudly, she waits for silence. She doesn't direct you toward another person's answers, she leads you back to your own. The hermit, in turn, lights the lantern not to show you the whole path, but just enough to take the next step with courage. There is a principle found in many wisdom traditions that speaks to this moment not as a peak of achievement, but as the moment you stop looking outward for direction. True awakening begins when you become still enough to realize that the insight you've been searching for has been inside you all along, obscured only by the noise of expectation and habit. And now, the noise is fading. This is why you may feel unusually drawn to moments of solitude lately, or why your usual distractions don't feel as satisfying. Something deeper is asking to be heard. It's not demanding action. It's inviting presence. Not urgency, but inquiry. And this is the perfect time to lean into that curiosity. Try beginning each morning with a simple practice. Before the world rushes in, sit quietly and ask yourself, what is my soul trying to tell me today? Don't force an answer. Just write. Breathe. Let the words come through, even if they seem unrelated or incomplete. You're not looking for perfection. You're opening a channel. And the more consistently you do this, the clearer the signal becomes. Often, it is in these quiet practices that the real aha moments arise, not as loud realizations, but as subtle shifts in perception. You may realize that something you've been resisting is exactly what you needed. Or that something you were chasing was never truly meant for you. These realizations are not punishments, they are gentle realignments, bringing you back into harmony with your natural rhythm. You don't need to chase signs. When you are open, they come to you. And they usually arrive when you've created enough stillness to notice. The number patterns, the synchronicities, the uncanny timing, these are not coincidences. They are the quiet fingerprints of alignment. Not magic, but resonance. As you move through this phase, remember that your value does not lie in how fast you figure it all out. It lies in your willingness to sit with the question, to stay awake, to listen with your whole self. Growth doesn't always come through movement. Sometimes it arrives through a sacred pause. What you're sensing now isn't just a fleeting feeling, it's a threshold. The kind of moment that gently, but forever, changes the way you see. Not because the world shifted, but because you finally paused long enough to see it differently. That's the moment where truth finds you. That's the aha. And once it does, you can never return to the way things were. Leo, if you're still here, then I know something deep inside of you is awakening. And maybe it's been stirring for a while quietly, gently waiting for the right moment to rise to the surface. That moment is now. This isn't just another ending or another shift. It's a return. Not to who you were, but to who you've always been, beneath the noise, the expectations, the survival roles. And for the first time in a long time, you're being asked to lead not with your armor, but with your truth. You don't need to be perfect to begin. You just need to be present. Present enough to admit what no longer fits. Present enough to say, I want more of what's real, what's aligned, what's mine. Because the truth is, Leo, you've spent so much of your life shining for others. Now, it's time to shine for yourself. August is not just another page on the calendar. It's a doorway. And everything you've experienced so far, every detour, every heartbreak, every triumph you didn't get credit for, has led you here, to this moment. It's time to stop asking for permission. It's time to stop waiting for the world to tell you you're ready. You already are. So let me ask you gently but with intention. What is one thing you know you need to release in order to grow? What belief, what fear, what outdated version of you is ready to fall away? Take a moment to write it down. And if it feels right, share it in the comments below with the words, I choose to step into the strongest version of myself. Because that declaration alone can shift the entire energy field around you. Not because of magic but because clarity is powerful. And courage, even quiet courage, creates momentum. This is the kind of transformation that doesn't happen through force. It happens through truth. And you don't need to climb a mountain to prove your worth anymore. You just need to walk with integrity, one step, one breath, one choice at a time. I want to thank you, from the deepest place in my heart, for being here. For listening. For showing up. Every like, every comment, every subscriber helps this channel, Eternal Mindfulness, reach more souls who are also ready to live with depth and intention. And that means the world to me. But more than that, it means something sacred is unfolding within you. You didn't just find this video, you aligned with it. And I hope you remember that. I hope you remember that your timing is not late. It's divine. So if this message touched something in you, if it gave you even one moment of pause, clarity, or courage, then I invite you to hit subscribe so you never miss the energy the universe is preparing next for you. Because what's coming isn't just another message. It's a continuation of the calling that started here, in you. Leo, may you walk through August with light in your chest, truth in your voice, and courage in your steps. You were never meant to be anything less than radiant. And now, finally, it's time to rise for you.